Right now, we are celebrating young people here on the South African Morning who are incredibly talented and committed to effecting change in how the youth see themselves. This morning, we are joined by one of the youngest radio station managers in South Africa. Jonathan Griffiths of Neutral Stereo FM in Dundee in KwaZulu-Natal is with us now in studio. A very good morning, Jonathan. Welcome to eNCA's The South African Morning. When we talk about the youngest station manager in South Africa, how young were you when you started?
I was a teenager. I was 19 years old. Yeah, so obviously I was still working for another radio station at that time, and I decided to go back home because there was no radio station, and so I initiated my own radio station, and from then onwards there was no looking back.
And obviously, what goes through your mind when you hear that you are the youngest station manager in the country?
Well, you know, honestly speaking, William, I think the last time I met you, 64 weeks ago, there's been so much growth and there's so much things that I learned because I've grown emotionally, mentally, physically also. So being the youngest radio station manager for me in the country means that there's so much that I need to learn about radio. I don't want to view this position as a position that I need to take and use my authority in a bad way, but I really want to learn from it. I want to learn from radio greats like yourself. So it's all about learning for me.
And where did the love for broadcasting for you start?
Sure, I don't want to explain this like how I usually explain it.
Right.
But obviously it starts off with the preaching work. Like I've said before, I started preaching when I was 5 years old. So I'd go from door to door and obviously seeing how that information and seeing how public speaking can really touch people. I fell in love with public speaking, but I needed to realize how I can channel that into a career. And that's when I got exposed now to radio and television. Unfortunately, where I'm from in Dundee, there's no television companies, so there were community radio stations that were surrounding Dundee. So I took advantage of that opportunity. That's where it all started.
Okay. And a lot of people listen to radio, but they don't necessarily know what actually goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Take me through just a day in the life of a station manager, inevitably the youngest in the country right now, sitting in front of me. What does your ordinary day look like?
There's a lot of planning involved. I have to plan my day personally and obviously arrange my affairs in a way that will benefit the station. And then obviously content research. I think that's the first thing that I start off with in the morning. It's content research. Because I feel like many community radio stations are so focused on just delivering content without actually understanding who is listening and what interests them. So of course at that point in time, preparing content, understanding your listeners makes me be able to create tailor-made content. So I start off with content creation. I often work off 3 Ps, so I make sure people, production, and place is sorted. People are the presenters, the guest, place is where we're going to be broadcasting, and obviously production is the technical side. So that's basically a day in a radio station manager's life, well, my life, as the youngest radio station manager in South Africa. But I'd also like to touch on something, William. You know, working with young people is not the easiest, especially if you're also a young person yourself.
How do those dynamics play out in real time?
You know, I think I first have to acknowledge my imperfections before I can even deal with them. Because acknowledging my imperfections makes me understand what they're going through. For example, we struggle with consistency. Right. I recall over the last contractual period, we were switching presenters and producers, and the listeners couldn't get used to it. So things like consistency have been a biggest challenge. But again, I understand when you're young, you want to explore, you want to go out there, hence why we have a constant rotation of presenters and personnel. But we keep it moving. As I speak now, we have the Youth Day takeover, whereby we got various high schools involved to host the shows for the entire day. So that's what we're looking for, young, vibrant presenters to take over the radio station and facilitate it accordingly.
Incredible. Talk to me about I imagine there was a gap that you were trying to fill when you started Neutral Stereo FM. What is it?
Well, first of all, like I said, I think for me, when I left school, it was a bit sad that I had to move out of Dundee just in order to pursue the media career. So for me, I realized that there was a need in my hometown to be able to provide young, talented people with the opportunity to gain the experience, to gain the exposure in the media industry. Because as I said, there's so much to learn. I feel like many young people have the wrong context of this industry for the fame, for the money, instant gratification, and it's not the case. For you to get to the point of William Lahong, it needs years of training underground without being known. And that is what the radio station provides for young people. So that's the need that I am fulfilling with the radio station in Dundee.
Listen, I know you've got to get to your other engagements because a lot of people want to chat to you. Thank you so much for making the time and stopping by here on the South African Morning. That was the incredible Jonathan Griffiths of Neutral Stereo FM, the youngest station manager in South Africa at the moment.